Hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. We all have those friends who overstayed their welcome, but have we all caught them in bed with our partners? Today on rSpace, a so-called friend dines on more than just dinner in this OP's house. Wife of 10 years cheated on me with her best friend, got served with divorce, and lost the custody. I, 38 male, am married to my wife, Rachel, 37 female, after 4 years of dating, and it's been 10 years of our marriage. I cherish my marriage to be the most beautiful thing that had ever happened to me, with our 6-year-old daughter adding to our joy. Rachel is a baker by profession and runs a small business of baking cupcakes and pastries from home. I work in a healthcare center, and my schedule is always hectic. That's why I cherish my family time a lot, because there are times that I have to work even during the holiday festivities. So whenever I get a break, I'm all about hanging with the family. We never had any major issues in our marriage, but in the last 3 to 4 months, I feel the spark of our marriage has gone. Even though we have an active sex life, emotionally, it feels so empty. Earlier, whenever I was home, she gave me wholesome time. She would sit together, talk about our days, and share the gossip. It was so much fun. Nowadays, she hardly asks me about my day or tells me about hers. I don't feel our bond is now the same as we used to have. It all happened with the entry of her best friend, Ryle. He had recently moved back to the town. He was living in a different country for 15 years. I'd only met him once at our wedding, but have learned a lot about him from Rachel. The story about their school life. That guy has now shifted to the city and lives in the adjacent block. Since then, I've seen him at our place. Not often, perhaps regularly. With his entry, our relationship has just fallen flat and dry. Ryle is often at my house, hanging out with Rachel and mostly staying for dinner with us. His presence has become so invasive that I and Rachel are not really getting a couple time. I'm really tired of this crap. I want to talk to her, but due to her behavior, I feel like it's going to be hard to make her understand my point of view. But there was no other way except this, obviously. Last week was my day off. I woke up before her and helped her in baking. She was in a cheerful mood today, and I got to know that Ryle was not coming that day, and that made me happy too. I took that to be an opportunity to share my worries with her. While having lunch, I asked her if I could talk to her about something that was bothering me. She said, "Go on." I was hesitant at first, but then asked her if everything was fine between us. She nodded and told me that everything was fine, and why would I ask that? I told her it wasn't, I know. I confronted my concerns about Ryle's presence in the house and we not getting any privacy in our own house. I clarified I don't have any problem with Ryle. He seemed like a nice guy, but I was trying to say that I wanted to spend my dinner time, my leisure time with my wife and my daughter without any outsiders. She was listening to me carefully, but she got offended when I called Ryle an outsider. She said Ryle was not an outsider and that she had known him way before I came into her life. She was like, "Ryle lives alone, so what's wrong if he spends time with us and has dinner with us? He doesn't eat free meals. He often gets groceries on his way." The conversation wasn't going in the way I wanted, so I stepped back. She said she would ensure that I don't get neglected in the relationship, but I should also understand that Ryle was her close friend who was just chatting up with her after being away for so many years. There was no reason to be insecure about it. Honestly, I didn't have a good feeling about everything. The conversation was not assuring at all, and I was really frustrated at how she was looking out for his feelings and avoiding mine. I left the table and went out to cool down myself, and there I saw Ryle walking towards my house. Though I didn't like to see him at that moment, I faked a smile and escorted him inside. The moment she saw Ryle, her face lightened up and she hugged him as if she was seeing him after years. She asked him to settle down and served him lunch, though he didn't ask for it. It felt so weird to see him like that, and I was losing control over this. I went to the table and started small talk with him. I sarcastically told him that he should learn how to cook now that he lives alone. He got uncomfortable and hesitantly responded, "Yeah." Rachel gave a dead stare to me. Oh boy, I knew what's on my way. After Ryle left, she blasted me for embarrassing him. She called me all sorts of names, inconsiderate, insensitive, insecure, and whatnot. She was so swift to say that I was accusing her of cheating, and I stood there in shock. I told her that I was uncomfortable that he spent so much time at my house, and that he always shows up for dinner, which is our family time. I'm not accusing her of cheating at all. When she had nothing else to say, she stormed out of the conversation and locked herself up in the room. I was so annoyed. After a hectic week, I look forward to spending quality time with the family, and Rachel got no chills showing off her fit. The whole day went into us sulking at each other's sight. I was so frustrated, and again, Ryle appeared during dinner. We sat for dinner, and Rachel was also again in such a cheerful mood, giggling and talking to him. I felt non-existent at my own house in front of my own family. He was also all in, complimenting her and looking at me for affirmation. I nodded and smiled. What else could I do? He told her she had become a lot hotter with age and maturity, had blessed her gorgeously. He was over the moon describing how he was head over heels for her during his college years, but he liked her black straight hair and not blonde. He asked me what I thought of her hair. I was like, I find her beautiful in every way. Doesn't matter if she leaves it blonde or dyes it to black. She's always gorgeous and I love her. Kissing her hand. She got awkward and got off the table, saying she needed to get something from the kitchen. Ryle also got silent after that. After he left, Rachel gave me a look. I was confused. She asked me if I was done embarrassing her. I didn't know that confessing my affection and kissing my wife's hand in front of her best friend was embarrassing to my wife. I mean, what kind of twisted logic was that? She said that I deliberately had put down her best friend. Wait, what? How the hell does this even make sense? She picked up a bowl with the intention to smash it, but then she walked out of the living room. After a while, she came back to the room trying to apologize, but I was done for the day. I tried to avoid it, but she insisted on a conversation again. I needed a few peaceful hours before heading for the next week. I wanted some alone time. She wanted to gaslight the situation, but I just walked out of the house saying I needed some fresh air. I took my car and drove off. I came back around 1 a.m. thinking she would have dozed off, but I heard her giggling over the call. She immediately hung up the call and curled up inside the blanket on seeing me. I asked her who she was talking to. She said a regular customer called in to place an order. Really? The customer was calling her late at night? She jumped to the point that I was assuming it was Ryle. Of course I was, but I didn't respond to her and went to my bed. She hugged me from behind, apologizing for her behavior again. It told me that she said that on purpose to tease me while kissing me. She touched me and things heated up between us. After the sex, she popped birth pills. I asked her if she was not up for a second child. Our daughter is 6 and wanted to have 2 kids, so it was the right time to plan for the next one. She gave me a disgusted look that she didn't want to ruin her body anymore, and that looking after our daughter was already so hectic due to her allergic asthma. Our daughter was born with allergic asthma. She needs extensive care and a bunch of do's and don'ts. I understand our daughter needs special care, but as a parent, we cannot be mean to her and say such awful things about her. She rolled her eyes and said it was she who was taking care of her while I'm barely available after my work. So I shouldn't comment. She wasn't the Rachel I married. The weekend ended awfully. The next day, I called Rachel for something and she didn't respond. It made me anxious, though there was no reason to be worried. It's normal for people to not respond. I realized my overthinking was making me anxious. At the back of my head, I always think she is with him, and that's why she's not responding. It was getting obnoxious for me. I came back in the evening, and Rachel surprised me with her new look. She had colored her hair jet black. Ryle commented last day that she looked better with black hair, and you see next day she did that. What else should I read from that? I asked her if Ryle had come over. She said no, but I saw leftover coconut kitchen, and it has to be for Ryle. I remember she told me she used to bake his favorite coconut cookies for him during college. Both I and my daughter don't like them, so it was definitely for him. Anyway, I couldn't stop thinking how Ryle would have been head over heels seeing Rachel in black hair. I asked her how Ryle reacted to her hair color. She said he hadn't seen it yet, and she had colored her hair for me. Yet another lie. For the last 10 years, she's been telling everyone how she loves her blonde look, and now she changed it all of a sudden with one comment. No doubt she looked gorgeous with black hair too, but you see, it wasn't her choice. She did it because her best friend liked it in that way. While I'm not driving a conclusion that she's cheating on me, we've been married for 10 years. She is the mother of my daughter. She's the one taking care of our daughter full time, and I can never accuse her of something out of thin air, but these subtle things are bothering me, and I don't want to be delusional and sweep it under the rug until it blows up. I mean, it is suspicious that suddenly Ryle says he likes her black hair and then she goes and colors it. And I get coming over for dinner every now and again, but at what point can you take social cues and feel like you're imposing on a family? Unless she wants him there, which she clearly does. So this guy is only doing what he's told, and slowly pushing you out of your own home. Update 1. Guys, my wildest horror came true. After my last update, things went on and off for a few months, but gradually I noticed Ryle's visits shrunk. I asked Rachel about him and she giggled that Ryle got a girlfriend. He's busy with her and doesn't show up at our place. I couldn't be happier. Naive me. Though Ryle wasn't coming home, his presence was still felt. Rachel was continuously on the phone, texting, sending pictures, giggling as if he was more present in her life than any of us. Whenever she was caught neglecting our daughter or being absent-minded, immersed in her screen, she gave stupid excuses that Ryle was missing our daughter and wanted to see her photo, or that Ryle was on a date at a fancy place and showing her the pictures. If this didn't work, she always had the customer to put the blame that she was dealing with the customer. I tolerated it until I could, but when it became unbearable, I asked her to put her phone aside while spending time with our daughter. She put her phone aside, irritated, and tried to pay attention to our daughter while her mind was on the phone. It was constantly buzzing. Though she was present with us, her eyes and mind were on the phone screen. I asked her who she was texting, and she told me that she just uploaded a few images to her bakery page and that she was getting DMs for orders. Even though we didn't argue since then, it didn't fix anything, and things have become drier than before. Nowadays, she doesn't even get intimate with me. Whenever I initiated, she would snap at me. She was either not in the mood or tired. She started getting unusually dressed up even though she was at home, and that was so unlike her. One day when I was leaving for work, I saw her putting on a new dress with heavy makeup and hair done nicely. I thought she would need a lift. I asked her if she was heading out somewhere and if she needed my car or wanted me to drop. She got irritated and said she wasn't going anywhere, and seeing my confused look, she was like, "What? Now I can't even dress up for myself?" There was no point arguing with her. She would assume whatever she wanted to, and my explanation cannot change her mind. So I let it be and drove off to work. There was nothing I could do to make her happy, and it felt like she had all her attention on Ryle rather than me. I was never a controlling husband, and she never did such things in our 10 years of marriage, but since the past few months, our marriage has turned into a nightmare. You guys have to agree on this. Being clueless due to your partner's actions makes you anxious and frustrated all the time. There was another instance when she told me to come home early and take care of our daughter, and she had to head for a friend's party. I happily agreed. She came from the party smashed, barely able to walk. God knows how she was able to drive back safely. I took her to bed. While changing her clothes, I saw red bruises on her thighs. My mind raced with several assumptions, but she wasn't in a condition to talk. I tucked her in the bed, but I was restless for the whole night. The next morning, I asked her about the red spot on her inner thigh. She told me that she might have stumbled on a table somewhere she doesn't remember. Her reply was so casual, I felt she was already prepared with an answer. Days passed, and even if I confronted her or shared my worries, it didn't fix crap. Some days she was lovey-dovey and sometimes she was just so snappy. Our sex life was near zero, and emotionally, we were just apart. She had lost her concern for our daughter as well, and half of the time she was out or busy on her phone. Yesterday, while she was unlocking her phone for our daughter, I snooped on the screen to see the password. When she was asleep, I unlocked her phone and went through her gallery. I checked it thoroughly, but there was nothing to find. I checked all the apps, and Ryle was nowhere to be found. It felt weird to me, and I immediately thought of a private safe. I typed this name, and his name popped up. But the chats were locked, and there were pictures as well. The locked chats were a big red flag. Why would she do that? The dots connected, and the only right answer was that she was cheating on me with him. I wanted to confront her right on the next day, today, but I woke up in the morning with an emergency call from a patient, and I rushed to the healthcare. While I was attending to my patient, I got 6 missed calls from my daughter's school. I called them back, and they wanted to rush to the school with her meds. She had an asthma attack. We always had an extra pack of pumps and meds in the car for emergencies, thank goodness. I assigned another doctor to my patient, gave all the necessary instructions over the call, and rushed to the school. I reached there just in the right time. My daughter's condition looked severe. I yelled at the authorities that they should have called Rachel when I wasn't responding. The authorities unleashed on me that they had called Rachel at least 100 times, but she didn't respond. That's why they had to call me. When there was no response from me, they called the ambulance, but luckily I arrived before that. Nevertheless, we were called irresponsible and careless parents. I nursed my daughter until her condition stabilized, meanwhile trying to call Rachel to ask her to pick up our daughter from school. I had to head back to the hospital, but she wasn't responding. Our daughter needed to rest, and I couldn't wait for Rachel to respond, so I went to drop her home. I reached my house to find Ryle's car in our driveway. I got an eerie vibe that something was wrong. I asked my daughter to stay inside the car while I sneaked inside. I entered the house to hear loud moans from Rachel, and as soon as she sensed that someone was inside, she was shut. I banged open the bedroom door and found what I was dreading for so long. I didn't say crap at that time and left. My daughter was in the car outside recovering from an asthma attack, and I just didn't know how to handle that situation. I drove off to the hospital with my daughter. She rested there in my cabin. Then I brought her to my parents' house. She's asking for her mom. I told her that mom is out of town until then. She's going to live with her grandparents. She is delighted to be with her grandparents. Rachel is blowing up my phone asking for our daughter's health. I'm assuming that she had called back to school and got to know about her asthma attack. I've also asked my lawyer to prepare divorce papers. I don't want to think twice about it. I'm done with her foul play. That's a parent's worst nightmare. I'm so sorry, OP. I can't imagine how scary that was for you and your daughter. That's such a careless behavior of her towards your child with medical needs. And then to confirm your wife's infidelity only shortly after? She's an absolute fool. Thank goodness you were able to leave work and tend to your daughter. Your wife's fantasy world is completely getting out of hand and she's losing sight of what matters most, that being your daughter. Update 2. Hello everyone. Sorry for the late update. I was busy with the divorce process and finally got rid of her. After writing the last update, I thought I would calm down, but I was so restless and anxious. On top of that, Rachel's nonstop calls and texts were pushing my buttons. I had so much anger in me that I wanted to explode. I drove back home alone. She was crying and creating a whole bunch of lies. I told her to shut up and reminded her that I was only there to let her know she would get the divorce papers within a week and she would never get to see our daughter. She pleaded with me not to take any severe measures and think about our daughter. I yelled at her not to show fake concerns. She shouldn't be worried about my daughter at all when she was busy effing with her best friend when our daughter had an allergic attack. She said she didn't see the calls. How could she? Because she was having the time of her life effing her best friend. I already had a hunch that their friendship was shady, and now that she has shown it to me live, there was nothing left to wonder. She got on with her acting game, murmuring and pleading like a maniac and pleading for one last chance. She was fighting with me the other day when I asked her about the bruises on her thighs. She was so full of pride and called me crazy. Now when she got caught, she was pulling an act. I also told her she had full liberty to F Ryle as much as she wanted to act like the slut she was. She got angry at my words and told me that she would file a case for full custody of our daughter. I dared her to try. A few days later, I came back home to pick up some stuff. She tried seducing me. After resisting for a while, I gave in. I know I'll be called pathetic, but I felt wild. I wanted to give her all the pain I was going through. I went really rough on her. She was shocked to find me that way, but didn't stop me. After we were done, she asked me if I was going to stop the divorce process, and I told her no. She gave me a defeated look and said I used her. I didn't use her. She was stupid to think of bribing me with sex because there was nothing that could have stopped me from divorcing her. The divorce paper reached her after 10 to 12 days. Her parents tried to settle things, but it didn't work out. She filed our daughter's complete custody to cut me off, but her school authorities testified about Rachel's irresponsibility, that she was absent and didn't respond to their call during an emergency, and that I was the one who came. Of late, Rachel was missing the parent-teacher meetings as well, and it was I who showed up. I got custody of my daughter, and she was allowed to meet her on the weekends. After the divorce, Rachel had become way softer with her and more present. Only if she had done the same thing back then, it would have gone good for us. But she acted like a complete twat back then, and she deserved it. I never heard of Ryle after that, and as for me, I'm busy taking care of my daughter and enjoying my time with my parents. You're so very right, OP. If only she had cared like that and been more present before. Not only that, but she had the audacity to ask you to think of your daughter. This divorce is the best thing for you and your daughter. She was a selfish fool, and people like her who want it all for themselves always end up with nothing. Wishing you and your daughter all the best, OP. You got this. What do you make of this? What would you have done about Ryle? Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time on rSpace.